Hello everyone! As it's spooky season upon us, I thought I'd try something different and share with you 3 spooky stories. I hope that you enjoy these stories and remember, don't get nightmares. Back in the early 70s, Northern England, my grandmother was a bit of a psychic and would often use a crystal ball, tarot cards, and the new sensation sweeping the UK, the Ouija Board. It seems odd, but the family did it all together quite often. A young relative I never knew or met had taken quite a fall off a church wall and had deteriorated in hospital, and well, he died. One day, weeks into using the Ouija board, it was he who contacted my grandmother, and he was very useful. He'd say things like, "Window, look, now." As my toddler, now who's an adult uncle, like most in his 60s, was leaning out of the living room window, head first, after climbing up from the sofa. Acting quickly, he was grabbed by his legs and pulled to safety. My granddad, who had no psychic powers but pretended to have, was a horse racing man, and as you expect, he would ask things like, "Who will win the 3:45 at Kempton?" The number horse was always spot on, unless money was placed, and it would be, for whatever reason, full or finish nowhere. The board couldn't be used for financial gain. Understand and grasp no chance, no way. One day, the spirit boy said, "I'm going away now. I have to help someone." "Well, are you coming back?" "Yes." "Well, when?" "Don't worry, I'll let you know." Many years passed without anything unusual and no contact through the Ouija board. Then one night, as my grandma slept next to my granddad, there was an unusual loud knock at the table at the foot of the bed. A persistent, single, loud knock, followed by a long pause. And then a knock again. Each time, that a bit louder, as if annoyed. My granddad froze in absolute terror. My grandma, a deep sleeper, didn't even stir. Granddad was paralysed with fear. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a whisper. Joan, please wake up." He felt paralysed, and all he could wiggle was his big toe as he frantically nudged Grandma. The knocking then stopped after what seemed like an hour. When Grandad told Grandma about the seriously strange event last night, she went berserk, and threw the crystal ball and the cards and the board on the fire. Nobody must ever speak of what happened, or the relation that they contacted. Grandad was shook up for quite a few months. Was the spirit revealing himself at the foot of the bed? And more importantly, would you have the balls to sneak a peek? Last week, I experienced something eerie that I can't seem to shake off. It was in the dead of the night when I was stirred awake by whispers. It sounded like a hushed conversation happening right next to me, and the strangeness of the situation jolted me awake. I opened my eyes to search for the source of the whispers, but saw nothing except for a strange, dark red glow illuminating from my phone. As I reached out to grab my phone, the screen suddenly went black. I hurriedly checked through the apps to see if I had anything running that had caused the whispering, or the red screen, but found nothing. The time was 3:41 AM, an odd hour for anything like this to happen. I initially brushed it off, thinking maybe I was dreaming, or my sleepy state had conjured up the whispers and the red glow. But the next day, as I was walking home from work, the same eerie whispering echoed around me. My heart raced as I picked up the pace, but then I saw them, 2 dark figures, lingering a few paces behind me. They seemed to disappear as quickly as they had appeared, fading into the shadows. I shared my strange encounters with a friend and I was met with a similar story that had happened to them just yesterday. They too were awakened by whispers, saw their phone light up for a moment only to go black as they reached out for it. Now, as I lay awake at night, I can't help but wonder if those whispers will return, or if the dark figures will emerge from the shadows once more. The eeriness of the events has left me a lingering fear, a chill that runs down my spine whenever I recall the whispers, and the fleeting glimpse of the dark figures in the fading daylight. And the thought that wasn't merely my imagination, but something my friend experienced too. It makes it all more unsettling. Now I am using the account of a friend to ask, has anyone else experienced something like this? Or are we just spiraling down a well of inexplicable fear? I've always been a fan of antiques. There's something about the history and stories behind old items that fascinate me. So, when I moved into my new apartment, I decided to browse Craigslist for some unique pieces to decorate my place. That's when I stumbled upon an ad for an antique mirror. The seller had posted a blurry photo, but from what I could make out, it had an ornate wooden frame and the price was surprisingly low. I messaged the seller and we agreed to meet at his place the next day. The address he gave me was in a part of town I wasn't familiar with, but I was too excited about the mirror to give it much thought. When I arrived, the house looked abandoned. The paint was peeling, the windows were boarded up, and the lawn was overgrown. I hesitated for a moment, wondering if I had the right address, but then the front door creaked open. A man stepped out. He was tall, with unkempt hair and a scruffy beard. His clothes looked like they hadn't been washed in weeks. "You here for the mirror?" he asked in a raspy voice. I nodded, trying to hide my unease. He led me inside, and the interior of the house was as dilapidated as the outside. The air was musty, and there was a strange metallic smell that I couldn't place. He showed me the mirror, and it was even more beautiful in person. The frame was intrinsically carved, and the glass was spotless. I was so captivated by it that I ignored the red flags and handed over the cash. As I was leaving, the man said, "Be careful with that mirror, it's got a history." I laughed it off, thinking he was just trying to add to the allure of the antique. But when I got home and hung the mirror in my bedroom, things started to get weird. Every night, I'd wake up to the sound of whispering. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but then I realized it was coming from the direction of the mirror. And when I looked into it, I'd see fleeting images of people I didn't recognize, their faces twisted in pain and fear. I tried to convince myself it was just a trick of the light, or my mind playing tricks on me. But one night, I woke up to find a figure standing at the foot of my bed, its reflection visible in the mirror. It was the man from the house, but his eyes were hollow and his skin was pale and translucent. I screamed and blinked, and then he was gone. But the whispering continued, growing louder and more insistent. I couldn't take it anymore and decided to get rid of the mirror. I tried to sell it, but no one was interested. I even tried to give it away, but it always found its way back to me. Desperate, I smashed it into pieces and threw it away. But even now, I still hear the whispering, and sometimes when I close my eyes, I see the man's face watching me. So, did you enjoy those stories? Were they a little too spooky for you? What are your experiences with the paranormal? Either way, I hope you have a nice spooky season or Halloween. Thank you for watching.